I'm Officer Hove. I've been with the Santa Barbara Police Department for 19 years. During that time, I've had various roles, but in the last about 10 years, full-time for the last 8 years, I've dealt with the population that will inevitably come into contact with law enforcement because of their lifestyles that is on display in public at all times. And it's inappropriate by most people's standards based on their mental health issues, their drug alcohol dependency, their dual diagnosed combination of both, or simply just the fact that they are viewed as being abnormal in terms of what's expected to take place in that time and place that they're occupying. So, we have a program called Restorative Policing. Restorative Policing was a program that was brought down from San Rafael with Chief Sanchez many, many years ago. It took a long time to get it into the incarnation that it's in today. What we do with them is really we take them, the people that we come into contact with or that law enforcement comes into contact with, we take their criminal behavior that I just discussed, and I'll get into more details. We take that behavior and try and see if we can't reverse it, stop it, and bring it back into the caring social world where they can get appropriate help as opposed to punitive actions compiled repeatedly with no outcome that's desirable for anybody, anywhere. Does that make sense? Okay, so I will start with a short video. It's a couple of years old. This is one of the very first people I started working with when we began restorative policing. I had no roadmap, didn't know what I was supposed to do. In the academy that's 6 months long, we have maybe a day combined of mental health, understanding, sensitivity and so forth, because it wasn't on the agenda to learn. It's not that they're ignorant to it and don't want to learn it, it's that there was no program in place to fit into that curriculum. So in the last 5-6 years, I've gone to the academy, the police academy, every time there's a class, and I'll spend a day introducing to the young people, the young cadets that are coming in to become officers and deputies. I'll introduce to them what it's like to have the voices in your head, what it means when we come into contact with them, what is necessary on our behalf to be able to coexist with that population that is constantly being called upon, like I mentioned earlier, but there is no law enforcement outcome other than what we can do, which is simplistically give them a citation or arrest them for the bad behavior. So when we come into contact, let me just do this real quick. When an officer comes into contact with somebody who is misbehaving, when an officer comes into contact with somebody who is being called upon, or we see them themselves, we have choices. We evaluate what we see where that fits in the matrix of what is this behavior, can it just go away and then not be an issue? Is it bothering somebody else? Is there a true crime taking place? Why is that crime taking place? And then with that, what solution do we pick here? And that's why I go to the academy. I go and I teach the young ones that just because somebody's not listening to you, just because somebody's agitated, just because somebody has anxieties, just because you arrest them and they refuse to give you their name in a way that's maybe not entirely their name, but you can tell that it's that person's name. They're just changing LeBlanc to White because they don't want to be LeBlanc, they want to be White. You can guess that they're giving you the real name when you figure that out. It's not a crime. It's a product of their mental illness and the issues that are taking place. But the officers without those tools and knowledge don't know that, and they will go by the book. They have to go by the book. That's what they've been taught. So I try and teach them, how do you look at the broader picture? When you arrest somebody who's claustrophobic, who has anxieties and so forth, and you put them back in a patrol car with handcuffs on, and your feet are size 12, and you can barely fit in the little bit of floor room that's in there, and it's hot in the back of the car, and you've just been arrested for something that you don't agree with because you are chasing your own demons and whatever's going on in your head, and the two officers outside start talking because they're waiting for cares to show up, and they say something, and cops joke all the time with each other. We have souls and sense of humor sometimes. And we'll be standing and chit-chatting with each other, but they don't understand that conversation and the response and the laughter is picked up by the person in the back of the patrol car that's in handcuffs and is dealing with a whole bunch of different issues. To the officers, it's nothing. To the guy in the back, it's everything. So I go on to teach the officers, this is what you have to keep in mind when you go and come into these environments and these situations. Okay? So that's just a little intro. I'm going to play this and then we can talk more after that. It's just, I think, 3 or 5 minutes.
A couple of years ago, things changed for the worse for me. I'd been well employed up until that time. I started drinking, and I won't show up for a job if I'm not 100%. So there were jobs I just didn't show up for.
There comes a point in time where you've lost all your resources, you lost your ability to get back up again, and you're basically at the mercy of what happens to you. And that typically involves alcohol as a way of numbing those feelings and those impossibilities that you face daily.
The light was terribly red when you crossed against it up there. Do you have your identification with you?
Certainly do.
Okay, can I see that? Oh, you reek of alcohol. Is there alcohol in there? It's not, is it?
No.
Okay. You are drunk, though.
I'm not.
Okay, you're intoxicated. How about that?
Usually I would be a candidate for getting another ticket. Officer Hove approached me, and he actually asked questions about what did I want to be doing? Did I want to stay where I was? I said no, and explained that I was in process of trying to get something else going.
I'm supposed to be in Santa Monica on last Monday. Take my ride to the truck.
What's in Santa Monica for you?
Salvation Army.
You mentioned that there are some people that tried to give him a ride down to Santa Monica to a program down there, but things fell apart and he was dependent on other people to take him there. And I offered I could do it the next day. Typically when I work with people that are down and out on the streets, there are a lot of obstacles. There's not just a linear approach. You have to make concessions for all different kind of things that can go wrong. And of course they did go wrong.
In the process of getting me packed up and out of town, a warrant showed up on the screen, and so if anybody, officer, had come by, I would be, out of the picture.
No matter how much you want it to be solved, it typically falls apart at one level or another, and it's like building a house of cards. One falls, the whole thing falls down, and you begin over again. And that's what I told Tyler. I will begin over with you again and again, and I'll stay with you to do this. Let's see if we can make this happen.
So Officer Hove told me, I had to stay low, and even if I did, I might be in trouble. About a couple hours later, a patrol car comes by and pulled over. Are you Tyler Richardson? Yes. We have a warrant for your arrest.
I worked with the public defender who is in his court, who in his interest, we decided the best thing to do for him was to go into jail for 1 week. And then we took him down to the program down in Santa Monica. On the way down there, he started talking about working with gorillas, and I heard the story, and I've heard many stories in my profession, and I listened to it, and I thought, well, I'm going to check that out and see what's that all about.
He was checking out the jobs that I mentioned that I wanted to pursue when I got out.
So I cold called the Gorilla Foundation. I spoke to the HR individual up there, and they were interested in knowing a little bit more about his abilities now, and if he would be a candidate for them.
Coco is very famous for being the first gorilla to acquire American Sign Language and use it in a way that is functional and understandable.
I could tell there was something he had a lot of passion for. So I Googled it and found out that indeed he was listed as somebody who had worked with Coco, the signing gorilla, that was famous from National Geographic's coverage in the mid-'80s.
My work at the Gorilla Foundation, it was a matter of keeping track of what was going on conversation-wise, what kind of signs were being exchanged.
Drove up there, met with the owners of the place, and met with the HR personnel, and Tyler had the fortune to meet with Coco again after 25 years of being gone, and he said she recognized him and remembered him from all these years, and she must have put a good word in for him. 3 days later they called and said that they would like to offer him a job.
Coco's female, she's always willing to talk about things. I'll be interested to find out what's going on. Right now, it's been 25 years I've been absent. Maybe starting over.
Now we're working on finding housing for him up there, completing the circle. Well, thank you. So I'm not used to being tethered to a mic, so I feel stuck here, and I really want to be out amongst you guys. I see a lot of familiar faces in the crowd here. Thank you for showing up. I don't want to repeat myself and explain things to you that are so obvious to you because you work in the field. But as I mentioned earlier, there is no roadmap for us to figure out how to do these things as officers. We learn it when we go to calls for service. What do we have to do? What makes this work? What doesn't work? And then you just hopefully grow from that. Coming out knowing nothing, you begin to learn stuff. So when I was dropped into this, I had no idea really truly how to work with this clientele, but I certainly had a desire to help them. So somebody like Tyler here that we just saw, did you notice at the very end he said it's been 25 years that I've been missing close, absent. So he puts a coloration to the word that is very neutral and at best it's not negative. He's been a drunk for 25 years, living in the street, waking up, peeing in his pants, and so forth. That dignity that he's looking for is not automatically granted to him. He doesn't get that based on his presentation every day. What I try and do as an officer and teach the other officers to do is to bring that back to them, and we can have a conversation that involves those words. Words isn't enough. That doesn't change his environment. But I go with those people in that time and space, meet them where they are, and make them whole and complete and wholesome one more time by finding what we can to help them. Once they trust that you're there to help them and that you're not there to cause more compiling of trouble upon them that they don't really necessarily respond to anyway, other than in a negative, self-beating up manner, once they begin to get the feel that you're there to help them, I can say, what would you like? A quick example, the other day, a kid gets out of a program somewhere. He's 21 years old. He's tatted up all over the place. He's got nasty words written on his, so he can show to the world what he thinks about him. He bought a ukulele. However tough he was, he bought a ukulele. Somebody on the street tried to steal it. He runs after him, grabs him. The guy smashes it on the ground. It's a $150 ukulele. It was how he was going to make his money on State Street. He's just arrived in town. He's upset. He doesn't want to press charges. That's against the system out there. You can't live amongst each other and then press charges and be in court with the police. Unwritten rules, but they work well in that environment. So he's very upset about all this, and he's falling apart, and he's slightly mentally ill. There's some issues there that pop up. We got 5 cops talking to him, and I just kind of stand behind and listen, and I wait a little bit. He calms down a little bit. We talk a little bit. I ask him where he needs to go after this. He doesn't want to press charges. He just wants his ukulele back. It's everything he had in this world that was just demolished. And there was no reason for it. There's no recovery from it because the man who did it, we had him. But he can't afford to pay for it because he was, dare I say, twice as mentally ill in terms of symptomology at the moment. It was just, there was nothing we could do with that. So cops, what do they have to do? We have to arrest somebody. We have to make him whole and complete by giving him restitution for it, but we can't squeeze blood out of a turnip. So then we take his wishes, which is, I don't want to go forward with this, but I'm upset. Do I trust him going back to State Street in that condition? No. So I offer him a ride. On the way to the skateboard park where he wants to go, he starts talking about mom and dad, and he hasn't talked to them in a while because he doesn't have a phone. Nobody will loan him the phone. Nobody will let him use a phone. He's all upset about everything. I reach in my pocket, get my phone out, hand it to him, going, here you go, use this. He calls Dad after a 10-minute conversation because I drive really slow and around in circles because I'm getting paid by the hour and I'm working. So I move about and I let him talk. And then I begin to hear them trying to make the coordination of where he's going to be met by Dad, who lives in Dana Point, Orange County. And at some point I interrupt and I say, is Dad trying to come and pick you up? And he goes, yeah. And I says, let me help you with this. I'm going to the train station in 35 minutes with a client who's going back home to Biloxi, Mississippi. And I says, if you want to ride back to Dad, Dad doesn't have to drive from Orange County when he gets off work to come up to try and find you. And I says, let me help you with that. And he goes, can you do that? And I says, yes, let me talk to Dad. I was driving, so I took that back again quickly. And I said, tell him you'll be on the 2:15 bus if we can make it. And we run to the bus station. Bus didn't work out. Train happened to leave at 2:07. Put him on the train. $39 later. $39. He gets reunited with Dad instead of getting stuck. Now, he had problems to begin with. We get that. but we would compound them by being here, getting arrested for whatever he does there, get put on probation, not able to leave. His entire support system is with his dad. Dad had tried to put in a program. These things, these program things are necessary for people that can't navigate on their own. Why make it more difficult? It took me 35 minutes to do that for this man. Is it going to fix him entirely? No. But was it the right thing to do? I certainly think it was. Was it a good thing for the city of Santa Barbara to do? Yes. Was it a good thing for the police department to do so don't have to chase him around all night? Yes. And make him a criminal for his behavior that isn't. Is it a good thing for him? Absolutely. As soon as I mentioned, he was all over it. Was it a good thing for his dad? The text and the phone message I got later certainly approved of that. When I played it for my wife, she cried when she heard the dad's message because he got back his 21-year-old son. Now, it's all the trouble of the tattoos and everything else, but it's somebody's child. And everybody out there is somebody's child. So I see everybody as somebody's child when we interact with them in terms of trying to help them. Okay? Any questions so far? I haven't really told what we do. I'm just telling my philosophy in stepping into the picture and doing these things. In answer to that, to comment on that, I would suggest that, or assume most people in this room understand that desire to help somebody else. Otherwise, you would be at the garage sales today, not in here. This is something that speaks to you in ways that you're thinking, how can I do better? How can I better help the person next to me with the tools that I have? You deserve it. The community deserves it. I deserve to be able to have an outlet to be able to help people with those things that they themselves can't help. I am not their savior. I am not here to preach to them. I am not here to do anything for them other than hear them. What do you need? You need a phone? That's how little it started. He just wanted to talk to mom and dad. I listened to him because I was curious. How can I work with him? How can I get him to do something other than be a criminal problem all night long in the city of Santa Barbara? He's only been here for 3 days and he's already in trouble. How do I negate the need for us to make it worse and make it better for him? So it just takes a moment to listen to it, and then you go, what can I do with this? And what will he allow me to do with this? The other guy going to Biloxi, he had come into town to help another friend that was just getting off probation. They were going to go up to Humboldt and score and do a whole bunch of shady stuff. But that other guy didn't show up because he flaked on him. So now he's stuck in Biloxi. He got into it with a couple of heroin dealers, and he fronted them off. So now he's in trouble with his whole support system that he thought he was going to come found in Santa Barbara. He was afraid to die because he had ratted out on somebody, which, like I said, we don't do. So he comes to me and says, can I please get a train ticket to go back to Biloxi? That's where Grandma is. And I says, I'm not just sending you back to Grandma. Does Grandma want you back? Is she ready to take you back? Do you need to go into a program first? Do you need to have these services provided first? Talk to Grandma. She would love him back. Send him back home to where he needs to go. That's what he's wanting. That's what he's begging for. Others don't want to leave town. And let me say this. I'm cautious of not making it seem like we're sending people out of town. I just mentioned 2 stories. They were first in my mind. I don't send people out unless they ask me. I get 4 or 5 people a day asking me, we hear you help us connect us to our family and friends and where we need to be. If you're just following the Grateful Dead tour and you don't realize that they're not quite doing it anymore in the same capacity, then I'm not your travel agent. So I look at the person, I talk to the person for 10 minutes, and the criteria I use, which is not by protocol or anything, is just my gauge, is will it be better for you to be where you say you want to go? Will it be better for the city of Santa Barbara and criminal activities? Will it be better for him himself? Okay, so that's kind of what I look at. Sometimes we have severe criminals, and I look and I go, that would be nice if he wasn't here. Sometimes you look at people that are so lost, and I'm going, well, he's not a problem, he's not bothering anybody, but he's asking for help. So I go on both sides of the spectrum here. I get the ones that none of you like, and I get the ones that all of you like, and I help them depending on what it is that they need. Does that make sense? I can't just go, oh, he'd be nice to get rid of, because I tell you, if I bought 100 tickets a week, do you think we would have no homeless problem in Santa Barbara? It would look just like it did yesterday. It is not a solution, it is just one of the tools. Second tool, I don't have much time, so I'm going to talk, but I'll get questions in just a moment. Second tool we have is restorative court. Restorative court takes the citations, tickets, and arrests that people, that they collect, so to speak, from their lifestyle. Peeing in public, sleeping in public, yelling in public, doing something in public that bothers the other people in the public. Those kind of crimes that don't have necessarily a victim, but what they have is they have a section in the book that says this is not how we behave, and if you do, we stop it by giving you a modification behavior citation. Here's a citation, don't do that again. You pay the ticket and go, I don't ever want a ticket again, and I'll never be drunk in public again. It doesn't work with a certain percentage of the population. They can't moderate that behavior. So, and it's not on purpose. I fully know that. There's too much to cover into little space. So please don't take some of the things I say quickly as a lack of understanding of the deeper root problem. They can't change their behavior the way that other people change their behavior by giving a citation or an arrest. It doesn't stop the behavior, no matter how much they want to. They can't stop it. So we take those crimes, as long as nobody else gets hurt in the picture, bring them into restorative court. Ask them what they want. Work with them on the one. Is it detox? Is it sober living? Is it permanent living? Is it transitional living? Is it access into the shelter? Is it help you get your SSI? Is it help you reconnect with the medical world? Is it help getting your mental health connection established again? Is it patching some things you did wrong, burn some bridges? Can we help with that? And if we can, then 6 months of them not getting any additional tickets, citations, arrests, and so forth, we dismiss all those tickets and say they don't matter. What matters is that you become elevated a level or 2 or 3. That's kind of up to you. So I'm going to go back to this individual, Tyler, we saw. That looked like a success story, right? There's no question about the presentation. It looks like a success story, and it was. A month later, he calls me up from Redwood City and says, the parasite that are in the slugs, of the banana slugs, are invading me, and they're doing this, that, and the other. And I said, Tyler, we never talked about mental illness. We only talked about alcoholism. And do we need to talk about mental health? And he goes, yeah, I think it's time. So he'd hidden that for 20 years with drinking. So we begin to talk about it, and he, on the phone with him every day, him in the hotel room with Jack Daniels in his hand, and me talking to him for a month, gets him back on track, gets him serviced, and he goes back to work with Coco. We all know who Coco is, right? These stories, you don't believe this when you hear, and then you go, really? And he met Coco again. And Coco goes, because she recognized him after all these years. So this is the most perfect story, and then 6 months later, he begins to miss work again because he's got backache and Monday morning sickness and this, that, and the other, and he ends up losing his job. So, and then 3 years later, he ends up losing his life. So, he had the perfect spot again, didn't he? For 25 years, he wanted to be with Coco. And he got it, and I thought in my naive way of thinking at that time, because this is 8-9 years ago, I thought he was fixing I could move on to the next one. No. I had to be drawn back in again, and then back in further, and then a little bit more, and then keep going with that. And what it taught me was that there absolutely has to be a warm handoff. I never take somebody to a program without having a warm handoff. I know there's a bed. I would take them straight from jail, drive them wherever it is, be it San Francisco, San Diego, Los Angeles, Bakersfield. I will drive them to that place, feed them on the way, always In-N-Out Burger, they like that. And make sure they have clean clothes, and make sure that I stay in contact and connection with these people that are suddenly being put into a dorm living with 50 guys that fart and burp all night. Who'd want it? Nobody would want it. So you can't just take somebody who has lacking the tools that you need to succeed in life and put them into an environment like that and then close the door and go, yep, next, I'm going off to the next one. So through restorative court and restorative policing, we just stay and we follow them into the levels of success as they move up the ladder. Sometimes when they fall, it's easier to catch them sooner than later because it costs me more to rehabilitate them later. When I don't catch them, I typically get a phone call from the park going, Officer Hove, I messed up, I'm sorry. Are you mad at me? And I go, why would I be mad at you? What does that help us? Would you like me to be mad at you? Okay, I'm mad at you. All right, now hurry up, get in here. All right? That doesn't help anything. They're getting the help that they aren't getting anywhere else to reconnect to all the services that have 86'd them because of their behavior. And I agree, you cannot be in the ER room and be so drunk and obnoxious and pull your pants down and do all those things that are illegal. We can't. But when you send them away, they become mine because they go out on the sidewalk and then I got to scoop them up. And what do I do with them? I can't take them home. Okay? So I have to find ways to shine them up bring them back up again and put them in the service system that's provided for them. That's it in a nutshell. We've had restorative court for 6 years now. I don't count anymore. We break all the rules that we can without getting in trouble in order to get people where they need to go. We have to, because if we follow the red tape, we can't go anywhere. It's very hard for me to navigate in through the system going up into that world where they've been ejected from. So that's what I ask of all of you that work in that industry. When we call them, we say, we have a Tyler right next to me, or we have the guy with the tattoos on his fingers, and I'm trying to do this for him. What is your tool? What is your superpower right now that I need, that you have, that I don't have? Where's your detox bed? Where can I get a detox bed? What do you mean it costs $350 for him to get in? He has no money. They look to me and goes, can you pay his entry fee? No, I can't. I found a person that you're getting grants for and that you maintain a big house for, and you have bets in there that say you want to take care of this population. If I don't have $350, are we then forgetting all our promises to take care of these people? I don't think so. Okay, so then I have to navigate in that. And I do that typically by going to the kind of the number 1 and 2 and 3 guy in the organization, and then we make some deals as to how can this work out? What can I give you? What can you give me? And how does this work out? Okay, it's very fluid. There are no procedures and protocol. So, questions? I know it went fast and there was a lot of stuff in there. Go ahead.
How many restorative police officers are there in this?
We just doubled last week.
You have 2 now?
We have 2 now. We had 2. We were fighting for a 3rd about a year ago. The chief we had before us was, despite saying that he wanted this program, did not support it in the least bit. So he cut our detail in half, brought it down to 1. Our active caseload in restorative court was 100 active clients at all times for 6 years. It went down to 25. Being 1, which is half of 2, did not just cut it in half. It prevented us from being able to follow them into the system and assist them, so that we just simply couldn't handle the workload. We need, and this is not your job, but we need 3 to 5 people in that detail, because probably about 70% of the calls for service in the daytime for law enforcement assistance involve that population. I can go to any call, I can follow any officer around, go to that call and do what I did with that young guy. But I can only be in one place at a time. So last week we got 1 more officer. So there are 2 sworn officers full-time and 2 civilians that they can work 20 hours a week, and they are fabulous and fantastic. So that's what we have now. I'm pushing for more, but it's hard. We all have shortages on resources. Any other questions? Yes.
Fitting in to some of the restorative court.
Yes.
process.
I go to the academy, and that's where I get about 50 to 70 young ones from our city and from Ventura and other places that are in that academy. I will give them a full day presentation, and I start slowly, where at first they think they're going to laugh at the funny things they see, and then suddenly it's not funny anymore. And suddenly it's one of those things where the old parable, you guys all know how to make soup, right? We take a component, you don't know, it's time to learn. You take a component, you chop it up, you put it in liquid, and then you take some more components. You know, you follow me, right? You take something, you add it, you add and you add and you add, and it becomes what? Soup, which is a 1-unit item pretty much, right? How do you unmake soup? How do you unmake soup that has been stewing for 25 years in the gutters of Santa Barbara and other places with a bottle of Jack Daniels to soothe all your problems? How do you unmake that? If you can figure that out instead of making the soup, I'll be happy to hear what you have to say. That's their lives. So I teach the other officers, this is what you're looking at. You're not looking at, oh, just take your pill and then your mental health issues will totally be in check.
Will this centers or support groups see this in action?
Absolutely. So that's first step in the academy. That's the officers. Secondly, when they come out of the academy, I do a post-academy introduction. I take them to restorative court, and they get to see it there, and I'll take them around and meet places that are the support places so they know where those places are. So you are welcome, anybody's welcome in restorative court anytime to sit and watch what's taking place. And if you feel that if you can justify, so we stay within procedures and protocol, if you can justify that you have a legitimate reason to be there, get a hold of me, and then I'll take you into the staffing process as well, where you'll sign a piece of paper saying you're not going to tell anybody anything about anything you're here and here, and you'll see how we, at a table in restorative court, discuss how we're going to help this person, and then they come in, we start staffing at 9, they come in at 10:30, and that's when court starts, open court. So my information will be provided, so anybody at any time can come and see that. If you need to come in and see the first part of it, and it's legitimate that you need to see it, not just a curiosity, go and let me just see what they're talking about, Bob, then get a hold of me. I see a hand raising, give me 1 second. So we really try and broadcast what we're doing, but again, there's only one of me, now there's two. So it's hard to reach this many people, but if you come to us, Thursdays, 10:30, Department 7.
That's my question.
See, I can read your mind from here. Yep.
What kind of feedback are you getting from Coffee with a Cop program?
We have that. It's very successful for the people that bother to, I shouldn't say bother, people that go to that. It attracts a certain kind of people that want to come and talk, and they have agendas. This attracts a certain kind of people that have agendas that I feel near and dear to their heart. So anybody who goes to a coffee, the Coffee with the Cops there, they go there because they want to talk and they find that it's suiting their needs. I don't go to those things. I don't drink coffee, but that's not why. I don't go to those things. We can't be everywhere, and I know that the officers that do go to it, they seem to think it's very useful. And one of the things we really need when we have somebody, like I mentioned, Tyler, we dealt with just alcohol, but it wasn't just alcohol. It was mental health. We didn't have access to therapists, and therapists cost money, right? It's about $100 an hour, something like that, if you just go pay for it. The insurance doesn't cover for it. So we went ahead and made connections with people and goes, can we bring your people back to you? And Christina will sit at the table with us and we'll talk about what we need to do, and she'll chime in with all her vast knowledge of the psyche and so forth, and talk about, well, this is what we can do, and we have these services to offer. Can you have him sanitized first by getting him into detox for 2 weeks? Can you do this, that, and the other? And we just sit at the table. So who else is at the table? Public defenders is at the table. Shelters will be at the table. Mental health will be represented at the table. Civilian attorney or civilian rights attorney will be at the table. I represent the aggressor. I'm the prosecutor in there. They let me do that. So when the public defender goes, Hove, you're going soft, you know you have a problem. But we're not there to punish them. Not in that space. We have served, a couple of years ago, the number was over 600 people with a very, very low recidivism rate, meaning that they went somewhere, something went better in their lives, and then success on coffee. City council from left to right all think this is a great program because it's speaking to something that they're trying to implement. If you're looking at this as a financial institution and you want to better your chances here, it is cheaper to have that person in a single occupancy hotel room where he's dealt with, where he can sit maybe and get drunk inside, but he doesn't get arrested outside for being drunk. That's $26 a day. Being in jail is $100 a day. I'm giving you rough numbers. Why would you keep going back to jail when we can clean you up, get you in your place, and pay $26 a day? Will that person forever and ever be right? No, maybe not. But why not have 3 months in a hotel room instead of 3 months in the jail? So the right side of the financial side sees this as a money saver. The other side, the compassionate side, if I have to split it that way, will see this as being, this is finally something that we're doing that's right by the people that need to be helped. And everything in between seems to like it as well. So it's very unusual that you can take a program that 7 people of different opinions seem to agree on as being a good program. And it only works because I have no objective to become famous from this. I have no objective to benefit from helping the 10 people that I see that day. I don't tell anybody. Again, back to procedures and policies, I don't write a report about these 2 people I just told you about. Nobody but me knows this, and then now you guys today, because it's top of my memory bank. But every day, these things take place, and have been for the last 8 years. These things take place. If there wasn't a video of this wouldn't be spoken about. This story doesn't exist. All the other people that have the same story, and there are many just like it, they don't exist unless we have them memorialized in this way and can share it. And I'm glad that somebody did this. But that's 8-9 years ago that happened last. Okay? So yeah, just anybody who has any ideas, come and see me. People always ask for money. I don't really need money. You know, people always go, if only had more money, if only had more money. I go, no, that's not what this is. You bear hug them and you take them through the system and you work with them, and that's how you get progress. Now, of course, it takes more money to get a 3rd officer, so I get it that money is needed there, but money is not the thing that makes this work. What makes this work is that it skins a cat in a different manner that's not been done before, because you're taking the wrong people into an environment. I don't mean that they're wrong, but they're in the wrong place for the assistance by being in law enforcement's sphere. That's all I have.